There are moments in your life when the veil between worlds becomes thin, not in the mystical, romanticized sense often portrayed in popular spirituality, but in a far more practical, energetic reality. These are the moments when your consciousness is most malleable, when your defenses are naturally lowered, and when the archonic forces that govern this material plane find their easiest point of entry. The first of these critical vulnerabilities occurs during major life transitions. Loss, success, relocation, career shifts, or any event that fundamentally disrupts your established sense of reality. Within the Gnostic framework, stability is a form of energetic protection. When your life follows predictable patterns, your consciousness develops routines, defenses, and a certain impermeability to external influence. But when that stability is shattered, whether through grief, sudden fortune, or geographical displacement, your entire energetic system enters a state of flux. You are, in essence, rebuilding your reality from the ground up, and during this reconstruction phase, you are profoundly exposed. The Archons understand this vulnerability with surgical precision. They do not need to force their way into your consciousness during these moments. The door is already open. A death in the family, for instance, creates a rupture in your emotional and spiritual landscape. The grief is genuine, the pain real, but within that raw, open state, you become susceptible to influences that would normally be filtered out by your discernment. Similarly, sudden success, a promotion, financial windfall, or public recognition creates an equally dangerous opening. The euphoria, the sense of validation, the rush of external affirmation all lower your critical faculties, making you more receptive to narratives and energies that serve the archonic agenda rather than your true spiritual development. Relocation and major life changes operate on a similar principle. When you uproot yourself from familiar surroundings, you lose the energetic anchors that ground your consciousness. New environments, new relationships, new routines all require a recalibration of your inner compass, and during alibration, you are navigating without your usual defenses. The Archons exploit this disorientation, offering false guidance, counterfeit connections, and seductive narratives that promise to fill the void left by your transition. These influences often feel helpful, even divinely orchestrated, but their true purpose is to redirect your consciousness back into the loop, to ensure that even in moments of profound change, you remain bound to the demiurgic system. The second moment of profound vulnerability occurs during states of peak emotion, whether ecstatic or devastating. These are the moments when your consciousness is flooded with intense feeling, euphoria, rage, despair, or overwhelming joy. In these states, your rational mind takes a back seat, your discernment is compromised, and your energetic boundaries become permeable. The Archons do not merely observe these moments, they actively cultivate and exploit them. Consider the nature of intense positive emotion, a spiritual experience that feels transcendent, a moment of profound love, or an achievement that triggers overwhelming pride. These states are intoxicating. They flood your system with neurochemicals that create a sense of expansion, connection, and meaning. Within these moments, you are far more likely to accept guidance, adopt beliefs, or make commitments that you would normally scrutinize. The critical faculties that would question the source of an experience or the validity of a teaching are temporarily suspended, replaced by a receptive openness that feels like spiritual progress but is, in fact, a dangerous vulnerability. The Archons exploit this by presenting false light experiences during these peak states. A vision that feels divinely inspired, a teacher who appears at precisely the right moment, a synchronicity that seems too perfect to be coincidence. All of these can be Archonic insertions designed to redirect your consciousness while your defenses are down. The experience feels genuine because the emotion is genuine, but the source and the ultimate direction of that experience serve the demiurgic system, not your true liberation. Negative emotional peaks are equally exploited, though through different mechanisms. Rage, despair, and profound grief create a different kind of opening, one characterized by energetic depletion and a desperate search for relief. In these states, you are far more likely to grasp at any offered solution, any narrative that promises to end the pain. The Archons provide these narratives readily: blame, victimhood, external salvation, or numbing distractions. Each of these responses keeps you locked in the emotional loop, feeding the system with your pain while preventing the deeper introspection that might lead to genuine understanding and release. The most insidious aspect of this vulnerability is that peak emotional states feel significant. They feel like moments of truth, of breakthrough, of spiritual importance. And in some cases they are, but without discernment, without the ability to maintain a thread of conscious awareness, even in the midst of overwhelming feeling, these moments become gateways for Archonic influence rather than catalysts for genuine gnosis. The key is not to suppress emotion, but to maintain a witness consciousness, a part of yourself that remains observant and discerning, even when the rest of you is swept up in the intensity of the experience. The third, and perhaps most paradoxical moment of vulnerability occurs immediately after a genuine spiritual breakthrough. This is the window that few seekers anticipate, the moment when clarity has just been achieved, when a profound truth has been glimpsed, when the divine spark has momentarily pierced through the veil of illusion. In this aftermath, when the seeker feels most empowered, most aligned, most certain of their path, this is precisely when the Archons deploy their most sophisticated countermeasures. Within the Gnostic texts, there is a recurring pattern. The moment of illumination is always followed by a test, a challenge, or a seduction. This is not coincidental. True gnosis represents a direct threat to the demiurgic system. When consciousness awakens, even briefly, to its true nature and origin, it begins to loosen the chains that bind it to this material plane. The Archons cannot allow this awakening to solidify, to integrate, to become a permanent shift in awareness. They must act swiftly, and they must act with precision. The vulnerability in this moment stems from a subtle shift in the seeker's state. After a genuine breakthrough, there is often a sense of completion, of having arrived, of no longer needing to maintain the same level of vigilance. The hard work feels done. The insight has been gained. The seeker naturally relaxes their guard, believing they have moved beyond the reach of lower influences. This relaxation is the opening the Archons require. The countermeasures deployed during this window are rarely crude. They do not come as obvious temptations or blatant deceptions. Instead, they arrive as seemingly benign opportunities, a chance to share the breakthrough with others, an invitation to join a community of like-minded seekers, a sudden influx of external validation, or even a new higher teaching that promises to build upon the recent insight. Each of these appears to honor and extend the breakthrough, but their true function is to redirect the energy of that awakening back into the Archonic loop. The sharing impulse is particularly insidious. After a profound realization, there is a natural desire to communicate it, to help others, to spread the light. But this impulse, if acted upon prematurely, can dissipate the energy of the breakthrough before it has fully integrated into your being. The Archons encourage this premature expression, knowing that the act of translating gnosis into words, of packaging it for external consumption, often dilutes its transformative power. What was a living direct experience becomes a concept, a teaching, a story, and in that translation, the seeker loses the thread of their own inner knowing. Similarly, the appearance of new teachings or higher practices immediately after a breakthrough serves to keep the seeker perpetually climbing, never pausing to embody what has already been revealed. This creates a spiritual bypass, where the profound simplicity of true gnosis is obscured by layers of increasingly complex systems and practices, each promising greater heights, but ultimately leading back into the labyrinth of the demiurgic mind. Recognizing when you are in one of these three vulnerable states requires a level of self-awareness that goes beyond ordinary introspection. It demands that you develop an internal monitoring system, a part of your consciousness that remains observant even during moments of upheaval, intense emotion, or spiritual breakthrough. This recognition is not about paranoia or constant vigilance, but about cultivating a quiet, discerning presence that can identify the subtle markers of vulnerability before they become gateways for archonic influence. The first marker is a sudden shift in your baseline state. During major transitions, this manifests as disorientation, a sense of being unmoored from your usual patterns and certainties. You might notice an unusual openness to new ideas, a willingness to accept guidance from sources you would normally question, or a feeling that anything is possible that borders on naivety. These are not inherently negative states, but they signal that your energetic boundaries are more permeable than usual. Pay attention to how quickly you are willing to adopt new beliefs or follow new teachers during these periods. If the impulse feels urgent, if there is a sense that you must act immediately or miss a crucial opportunity, this is often an archonic insertion exploiting your transitional vulnerability. During peak emotional states, the markers are more visceral. Notice when your body is flooded with sensation, whether euphoria or despair, to the point where rational thought becomes difficult. In these moments, observe whether you are being presented with immediate solutions, dramatic revelations, or urgent calls to action. The Archons thrive on urgency and intensity. They know that in peak emotional states, you are far more likely to make commitments, accept teachings, or engage in practices that you would normally approach with caution. A key indicator is the absence of space for reflection. If an experience, no matter how profound it feels, does not allow you time to integrate, to question, to sit with it in silence, it is likely serving an agenda other than your true awakening. The third set of markers appears in the aftermath of genuine breakthrough. Here the signs are more subtle. Notice if immediately after a profound insight, you are suddenly presented with opportunities to share, teach, or formalize what you have learned. Observe whether new higher teachings or practices appear, seemingly building upon your recent realization, but actually redirecting your focus outward rather than allowing deeper integration. Pay attention to any sense of completion or arrival, any feeling that the work is done. True gnosis does not create complacency. It deepens the commitment to inner work. If your breakthrough leads to a relaxation of vigilance rather than a quiet intensification of awareness, you are likely in the vulnerable window where Archonic countermeasures are most effective. Physical sensations can also serve as markers. During all three vulnerable moments, you might notice a subtle energetic drain, a sense of being watched, or an unusual heaviness that was not present before. These are not always Archonic in origin, but they warrant attention. External synchronicities that feel too orchestrated, too perfectly timed, or too flattering to your ego are also worth scrutinizing. The Archons are masters of mimicry, and they will use the language of spiritual awakening to keep you bound to their system. Fortifying your consciousness during these three vulnerable moments is not about building impenetrable walls or retreating into isolation. It is about maintaining a thread of discerning awareness, a quiet inner observer that remains present even when your external circumstances or internal states are in flux. This fortification practice is subtle, requiring consistency rather than dramatic effort, and it operates on the principle that conscious awareness itself is the most effective barrier against Archonic infiltration. The first technique is to establish a daily practice of inner stillness, independent of your emotional or circumstantial state. This creates a baseline of energetic stability that remains accessible even during transitions, peak emotions, or post-breakthrough windows. Whether through meditation, contemplative silence, or simply sitting in awareness without distraction, this practice builds a foundation of inner coherence that does not collapse when external conditions change. When a major life transition occurs, this established stillness becomes your anchor, preventing the complete dissolution of boundaries that the Archons exploit. During moments of peak emotion, the fortification practice shifts to conscious witnessing. This does not mean suppressing or denying the emotion, but rather maintaining a part of your awareness that observes the experience without being entirely consumed by it. In the midst of euphoria, ask yourself, what is the source of this feeling? What am I being invited to accept or commit to in this state? In the depths of despair, observe. What narratives am I being offered as solutions? What am I willing to surrender in exchange for relief? This witnessing consciousness creates a buffer, a moment of pause between the emotional stimulus and your response, and in that pause, Archonic influence loses its grip. The third fortification technique applies specifically to the post-breakthrough window. After a genuine spiritual insight, resist the immediate impulse to externalize, share, or formalize the experience. Instead, enter a period of deliberate silence and integration. Treat the breakthrough as a seed that requires time to root in the soil of your consciousness before it can bear fruit. This means declining invitations to teach, avoiding the urge to immediately seek validation from others, and maintaining a healthy skepticism toward any new teachings or practices that suddenly appear. The Archons cannot infiltrate what remains internal and unspoken. By protecting the integrity of your gnosis through silence, you allow it to integrate fully into your being, transforming from a fleeting insight into a permanent shift in awareness. A practical protocol for all three moments is to consciously slow down your decision-making process. The Archonic system thrives on urgency, on the feeling that you must act immediately or miss a critical opportunity. By deliberately introducing delay, waiting 24 hours before making a commitment, sitting with a teaching for a week before adopting it, allowing a transition to settle before seeking new directions, you create space for discernment to operate. In that space, false guidance reveals itself, counterfeit experiences lose their luster, and your own inner knowing can emerge clearly. The cost of leaving these three vulnerable moments unguarded is far greater than most seekers realize. It is not simply a matter of missed opportunities or temporary setbacks on the spiritual path. When Archonic influence successfully infiltrates during these critical windows, it can bind your consciousness for years, sometimes decades, redirecting the trajectory of your entire spiritual journey back into the labyrinth of the Demiurgic system. Consider what happens when a major life transition is left unprotected. The Archons do not merely observe your disorientation. They actively shape the reconstruction of your reality. The new beliefs you adopt, the teachers you encounter, the communities you join during this vulnerable period often carry subtle Archonic programming. These influences feel helpful, even divinely orchestrated, because they arrive precisely when you are searching for new anchors. But their true function is to ensure that your new reality, despite appearing different from the old, remains firmly within the boundaries of the material prison. Years later, you may look back and wonder why that promising new chapter led to the same patterns of frustration, the same sense of spiritual stagnation, the same feeling that something essential is missing. The answer lies in that unguarded transitional moment, when the foundation of your new reality was laid by forces that did not serve your true liberation. The cost of unguarded peak emotional states is equally severe. When you make commitments, adopt beliefs, or follow guidance during moments of compromised discernment, You create energetic contracts that persist long after the emotion has subsided. A teaching accepted in a moment of euphoria becomes a lens through which you interpret all subsequent experiences. A commitment made in desperation becomes a chain that binds you to a path that no longer serves your highest consciousness. These contracts are difficult to break because they were forged in moments of intense feeling, and the psyche tends to honor what was decided in such states, even when rational examination would reveal their flaws. The post-breakthrough window, when left vulnerable, carries perhaps the most insidious cost. This is where the Archons perform their most sophisticated work, the redirection of genuine gnosis back into the loop, a real spiritual insight, if successfully co-opted during this vulnerable period, becomes a tool of further imprisonment rather than liberation. The seeker believes they have advanced, that they have gained profound understanding, but the energy of that breakthrough has been channeled into external validation, premature teaching, or the adoption of new systems that obscure rather than clarify. The tragedy is that the gnosis was real, the breakthrough genuine, but its transformative potential was neutralized before it could fully integrate and catalyze lasting change. This is the Archon's ultimate strategy, not to prevent awakening entirely, but to ensure that every genuine moment of clarity is immediately followed by a countermeasure that redirects consciousness back into acceptable channels. The seeker continues to have experiences, to feel progress, to accumulate spiritual knowledge, but the fundamental shift in consciousness that would truly liberate them never solidifies. They remain perpetually seeking, perpetually vulnerable, perpetually bound to a system that feeds on their spiritual aspiration while ensuring they never quite break free.